Jeff, one of the most common questions I get from people that are starting out in franchising is how do I find my first, half dozen franchisees? I know you guys might be a little bit different, but how did you guys, find your first four franchises? Were they customers? Were they referrals?
Yeah. So this is maybe going to be a long-winded, but it's worth it. The first franchise I explained was in California, and that was an inbound call. We're fielding inbound calls all the time from all around the world, from China to Toronto to the East Coast and West Coast. The second and third franchise were actually conversion. So those were local to Chicago, a company called Windy City Ninjas. I was able to call Tom up and we had a long dialogue about, how the benefits of joining forces. So it was his baby to have Windy City Ninjas Chicago and Windy City Ninjas Elmhurst. It takes, a lot of credibility to Tom to convert those over to Ultimate Ninjas. And so now we're all one brand and united under one brand. Mm-hmm. So there you have three. And then, as I mentioned, four is Mike, who just opened up Oak Creek this past Saturday. I will stop there and, kind of pivot a little bit with mm-hmm. what we're developing within the franchise group. So we have now, with our newly released FDD, we have a bifurcated offering when it comes to franchising. We have what we call our big box sports complex gyms. That's what we've been doing for years and years, since 2016. However, we see such a demand for the little ones between the ages of 1 year old and 6 years old. We've been getting inbound calls from people all over the country that just want to franchise that aspect of our gym. Our gyms have Little Ninjas areas within them, mm-hmm. but our new concept that's rolling out later this fall will be Ultimate Ninjas Academy. And so those academies will be a footprint of far less, 3,000 square feet, far less complex than these big box gyms, and very much easier to administer and very much easier to afford. So you've got the big box sports complex, for the franchise, the people that want to go at it and be the biggest flag in the city, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've also got the ability to come in at a more economical, easier to administer academy route. And then perhaps in the future, be able to plant your flag in a big box gym eventually. But this is a much easier entryway into franchising than a complex.
Sure. What's the investment range difference between the big box and the academy?
Well, the academies are on the low end of the academies. We're looking at about $270,000.
Okay.
On the high end of the sports complex, we're looking at $760,000. So you can see that delta.
Yeah.
There's far more people that can afford a $250,000 outlay than a $700,000 outlay, and much easier to manage as well.
Absolutely. What about your franchise owners? Like, who is your ideal franchise owner?
Well, Jesse can add a little bit of color here, but that's a different answer for the different offering, right? Mm-hmm. So from a sports complex standpoint, the ideal franchise owner is probably someone who is a little bit later in their career, maybe has a little bit more funds and wants a change of direction in their career, is passionate about kids' fitness, is passionate about sports. That's kind of the framework of what we're seeing when we get these inbound calls of husband and wife that have that kind of passion, but they ran their course with consulting or whatnot. Mm-hmm. On the academy side, as we roll this out and as we have a couple people in the pipeline that are interested, we're seeing the profile become more of a mom and dad that have little ones that want to have this as the secondary income. And perhaps, one of those two assuming the role of the manager of the day-to-day operation. So very different profiles for each. I don't know if I missed anything there.
Yeah, it's a lot of parents seeing that space, like they don't have some place to take their little one that's mm-hmm. 2 years old. They don't know what to do with their days off. And so they're looking for something to give to the community that can be for that age group. I mean, that's what I'm going to be looking for when I have my kiddo. I'm going to be looking for things to do with him to keep him active and to keep him, wanting to go different places and being excited. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's like super invested into an American Ninja Warrior.
Right.
It's just wanting to get these kids, their energy out, being active and being okay with falling, but still getting back up and trying again. It's great lessons for these little ones to learn. So
yeah, these little academies, we're here in our Naperville gym, but we're in the office, but maybe we can share some screenshots with you after the show. But, they're mini warp walls of 4 feet and 6 feet. And instead of ladders going down the warp walls or fire poles, there's a slide, right? So it's a much easier, softer approach to ninja than like these hardcore gyms.
Right.
Which, yeah.
You even go to jungle gyms, right? Like you go to your park district or you go to your local jungle gym, and there are things that are just too high even for your little ones, like your 2-3-year-olds. Like you have to be right underneath them, and if they slip, they're falling on wood chips. Where here we have everything is padded, everything is safe, everything is colorful and pretty and cute. We have monkeys all around, things like that. But like our monkey bars are set for kids that age, plus padded, plus coaching. We have rock walls. We have things that is there for that age group, where there's just not a lot of options for those younger kiddos.
Sure. As a kid that grew up in the 70s, I could assure you that there were plenty of jungle gyms and monkey bars that should have never been in a park.
Right.
We did not fall on wood chips. We fell on rocks back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, these are the academy concept is, it's a delight to look at in our big box gyms, the sports complex, but we feel like there's a place for these in every city. And they're very easily transferable for kids that want to continue in the sport. But we get requests all the time before we sectioned off that area is like, what I want to come in with my 4-year-old. And we were, prior to this academy offering, we were only starting at 6.
Yeah.
And so now we've got a whole runway for kids to start as young as 1 all the way to progress to, perhaps one day being on our elite team.
That was similar to my experience. When I started my sports business, it started at age 6. And then before you know it, we went to 5. And then we had parents of 4-year-olds that wanted their kids in the program. And then before you know it, we were doing soccer at 3 years old, which I never imagined, right? Jesse, question for you. Since you're a general manager and you run a location, what do you think it really takes? Like, what are the traits of a successful franchisee?
I think it's just someone that takes initiative, someone that sees what kids are needing and really just, providing that for them, being a good leader and role model yourself. And then also just kind of like teaching that perseverance, teaching the best thing about ninja is that we're teaching that it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall, teaching perseverance and confidence, but then also just being a great leader yourself. I feel like that is kind of where I'm at. I feel like I run a pretty decent gym here in Naperville, and just someone that, takes initiative, is a go-getter, isn't complacent. I feel like that's definitely, just what we're looking for.
Do you want your franchisees to be owner operated or manager operated?
I would argue you could choose either. We would highly suggest at the onset, you as the owner be there and running the gym. You can't be there 7 days a week, but we would highly suggest somebody that's become an owner operator versus just hiring and being kind of an absent.
Okay.
But it is doable. It is doable, right? Because I could definitely lean on Jeff all the time and I could call him whenever I needed him. But as far as like Naperville, I feel like I ran it a lot. I didn't do a lot of the admin rent, some of the bigger ticket items, like he did a lot of that side of it. But as far as like managing the gym, it is definitely possible where you just get a manager who is really good and they can just take over that, take over the running the entire business space. But I definitely did have help from Jeff as far as, insurance and rent. And, if the AC went out, I called Jeff. I was like, hey, how do I do this? And so it can be definitely a mix of both.
Yeah. If you were lucky enough to have Jesse as your first hire, that's great. But like, I would argue that owner needs to be present, needs to help build the community. You can't rely on a 20-ish-year-old to build your community. And that's kind of what makes our gyms hum from a business standpoint is the community becomes engaged within your gym and they begin to promote you by wearing your shirts. I mean, it's not Ultimate Ninjas is a very hot item when it comes to Naperville. People walk around the streets with Ultimate Ninjas with pride. And so that's what kind of builds our community. And Jesse's gym, all of our gyms are essentially on autopilot when that happens.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.